Hi and welcome to my channel. I am Caspian and I read books. And this is my first monthly wrap-up video, so let's see how this goes. So just so you know, I do have a better way of recording so that the image is better, but that doesn't allow me to show you screenshots of the books that I have that I don't have in my possession. So bear with me, because I am not that good at editing, and that's an understatement. So this is what we have to work with, guys. Just saying. So I just watched my own TBR video for December, and I don't know how I counted up to 14 books on my TBR, but uh, because when I count down to the ones I read and DNF'd and blah blah, then I don't know what happened to 3 of them. I'm not sure. So anyway, out of the 14, I can only add up to 11 that I have touched in some way. So I don't know what happened to the other 3 of those. I haven't really. I don't know. Anyway, so the first book. So I'm gonna do like this. I'm gonna tell you the stats for December, and then I'm gonna talk about the books that I actually read. And in between there, I'm gonna talk about. Well, before that, I'm gonna talk about books I didn't read. So let's start with this. Out of the books I had on my TBR for December, I DNF'd one, and it was this one. The first one I talk about in that video, which is Claire Sandys' book. That was one of my Sunweight calendar books for myself, and the original title was Snowed in Christmas. So I DNF'd this because it just wasn't my cup of tea. I talked about it a little bit in one of my Sunweight videos, I think. It wasn't my cup of tea. I just realized that I have no interest in reading about single mothers and whatever struggles they go through. I'm not a woman and I'm not a single mother. And I am not, I am actually at that age that I have a lot of friends with children. I have seen their struggles. I continue to see their struggles and supporting them in their daily life, and that's enough for me. So, no to any more single mother tropes. No, thank you. Not for me. That's not enjoyable reading for me. And it's not enjoyable and it's not relatable. So I DNF this and I'm gonna give it away to the secondhand store or another secondhand store than the one I bought it at. So I was seduced by the wintry cover of this one. Yeah. And then I paused one that I haven't with me today in either capacity. And it was the Night World series that I was recommended because I am currently in the middle of the night. What's the another vampire series. So I haven't read from that series this month because I haven't had time, but I am currently in the middle of a series that was just too close to. I didn't feel like reading two similar series at once, and it felt like they were very similar. They were like high schoolish settings with vampires, vampire students, and it just felt like they were gonna clash in my head or like get mixed up. So I'm gonna pause that series. I haven't even started it, but I'm gonna put it on a shelf in my mind and keep it in mind until after I have finished the other series. So I paused that one. And then I read 7 of the ones from my TBR, and I'm gonna talk about those in a minute. And then 2 of the books, 2 of the non-fiction books, I didn't get to at all. So I'm gonna be a part of my January TBR. And you're gonna see those in my January TBR video. I did get through 2 non-fiction books, and which I'm very happy about, and those were my sort of priority, and then the other 2 I'm happy to leave them for January and read them slowly throughout January. So now I'm going to talk about the books that I did read. So the first book I read for December, and that was on my TBR. No, this is not right. That was on my TBR. Let's see if I can do this. How do I do this? Oh no, I can't access those. Let's see. I think I solved it. So this is the first book that I read from my TBR, Beautiful Creatures. And I gave it 4 stars. So this is the second book in the series by Kemi Garcia. So I know it says Beautiful Creatures because this is the Swedish edition, but I know it has another title in English. But it's the second book in the Beautiful Creatures series by Kemi Garcia and Margaret Stoll. So that was the first book I read in December, and 4 stars. That's a good rating. And then the second book I read from my TBR was The Memory Theater by Karin Tidbeck. And this is the book. Lovely picture of me reading it in my couch. So this is a Swedish author, and it's so The Beautiful Creatures was a fantasy book, but not high-fi fantasy. But this book is a fantasy slash a bit of a sci-fi, I would almost say, because it's about these 2 children jumping between the worlds almost, and finding what is called the memory theater, which is a group of people that they keep the memory alive by reenacting different memories. So every time something happens on Earth, I guess, they get like the play of it in their book of plays, and then they reenact this in order to help store that memory in the universe. And they help these 2 children. It's a really intricate story. So, but I did give this book 3.5 stars, and I did enjoy it. I did enjoy it. I like the kind of sci-fi aspect of it. There were a few things I didn't really wasn't really my cup of tea, but I did enjoy it. And as I'm talking about this, I realize that maybe this isn't a good concept for me about with wrap-ups. I can have wrap-ups videos and just wrap them up and say what stars I gave, and the general idea. But I don't remember that much from the books. I don't remember that much from the books. So it's hard to talk from memory, harder than I thought was possible. That was good because I have a memory of the book, but my memory of the book is usually like the pictures I get in my head while I read it, and it's not easily summarized into words. That is what I am currently experiencing. So I'm probably just gonna flip through all of this, and I'm gonna come up with like a concept for myself in January. Maybe I will do like talk about the books as I read them, and then wrap them up at the end of the month as well, probably more as a comparison to how did I do with the TBR I set for myself. I think that's what I'm probably going to be focusing on. So yeah, and so the next book on my list of books I read was not on, it was on my TBR, but not directly. I didn't talk about it in that video, because it was one of the blind dates with books. Well, one of my Sunweight calendar. So this was it. It was Helena Kubicek Boye, and the title is Before the Snow Falls, Innan snön faller, Swedish. It's a Swedish psychological thriller, and I talked about it in one of my Sunweight video books. So, and I really enjoyed this one. I gave it a 4.5 stars. And I remember it being something with the language of it that kind of hindered me in the beginning. Like there was like this language that was the kind of like just listing actions and things, kind of like entered the door, did this, bent down, did this, and it bothered me in the beginning. I was like, oh no, am I gonna have to DNF another one of these Sunweight calendar books? And then I guess I got over it, or it didn't happen as much as I went further into the book, because I really ended up enjoying this book. It was a really well written, I think, because I had a good time with it. Book about this mental institution in like almost in the middle of Sweden, out in the countryside. Well, for me, it's out in the countryside because I'm from the capital, but it's really in like it's in a city area. I think like a suburb area or something. Like a not it's not rural. It's more of an urban area. But yeah, I talked about it in one of my Sunweight videos. So if you're watching these videos, please let me know if you would like me to talk more about them in this wrap up as well, or if I should just keep referring back to the videos that they are in, because I don't want these videos, the wrap up video, to be too long. So yeah, I really enjoyed this one. This was a hit for me. It was a welcome hit when it came to the Sunweight video books. So yeah, this is staying in my library, which is wonderful. I can see myself reading it again. And the one wonderful aspect of this is that I actually have family. I have relations in the area where the book is set, in Dalarna in Sweden. So, and I'm gonna go next year to visit that area, hopefully. So I would probably maybe read this book again before that, or take it with me to just, have the atmosphere. And I actually found out a few days ago that I have a relative, distant or whatever, that has actually worked at the mental institution in this book. It's a real place. So that was kind of interesting for me. So the next one, the next one I read was on my TBR, and it was Belladonna. So this was it. This is the version I read. This is like the cover of the version I read. Belladonna by Adeline Grace. I want to say Belladonna, but no, I can't say it in English. In my mind, it's like it gets like this error kind of state when I try to say it in English. It's gonna come out either in Swedish or in some kind of Swedish slash Italian kind of try. So Belladonna is the Swedish title. Belladonna. Belladonna is a plant, and this book I gave 4 stars, and I think I gave it 4 stars because it was a wonderful read, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the series, Foxglove and Wisteria. But I didn't feel like I want to read it again. I do remember it quite vividly, and if I read the other books, like in January, maybe February, I don't have time in January, but if I read them close enough, I probably will remember the first one enough to keep going, and I won't have to reread. So I really want to continue with the series. So I gave it a 4 star, and oh my god, my voice. Sorry. So this book is about a young woman that it's I think it's set in like the 1850s or something like that. And it's about this young girl that has gone through a series of different guardians. She's not of age yet, so she's not considered an adult. When she is considered an adult, I think like 20 or 21 years old, she's going to inherit a lot of money. So this book follows like different tracks that are weaved together, and one of them is her developing this relationship with the Hawthorns that she's living with, like well, because when her aunt dies, all of her previous guardians have died, and when her aunt does, she ends up with another aunt, I guess, aunt's family, but the aunt in where she's dead, but her husband is alive, and their children are alive, and it's about her relationship with these people. But it's also about the daughter of the family being sick, and this young girl, whatever was her name. It's about her developing a relationship with them and also finding out why this daughter of the family is sick and if she can help her, because this young woman has I'm trying to find her name in my head. She has a weird relationship with death. So at the beginning of the book, that only means that death is kind of following her. Like I said, the previous guardians has died, and she feels like death is ripping away everyone she loves, and she's like trying to fight the death. And she is doing so by actually using the belladonna flower, the herb, to put herself in a state of almost dying so that she can, meet death in his own realm. And you could find out in the book, so it's not that big of a spoiler, that she really can't die. For some reason, she can't die. So she can put herself through physical trauma with this herb and almost dying, but she can't die from it. So sooner or later she's gonna come back from it. And she fights the death, and she's developing the relationship with death in order to with the biggest intention being helping her cousin Blythe to survive her illness and to find out why she's sick. So it's a really interesting story of coming. It's a coming of age story, but it's also family slash found family kind of situation, because they are her family, not like close family. And it's about all of these relationships, and it's about betrayal. It's about love, because there is a love story in this book as well. So, but I would categorize it a fantasy and not a romantasy. The romance is a intricate part of it, so maybe it's a romantasy. I don't know really where the line goes with that. So that was the fourth book I actually read. I read 10 books in December. The next one is Arvspelen, or the Heritage Games. So this is the book, and the cover looks exactly the same in English, but it says the Heritage Games. So this is by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, and the funny thing is, in this book they are also called the Hawthorns. So this book is about a young girl. She's like 16 years old, and all of a sudden she inherits this big house and all of the assets of this weird old man that is called Mr. Hawthorne. And uh, so she's kind of dragged. She and her sister is kind of dragged to this big mansion, and it's big. It's got like tennis courts and bowling alleys and everything you can think of inside. So it's really big. So she's kind of dragged there to for the reading of the will, and she ends up under getting to know that she she's there to find out that she has inherited it all. and that this billionaire of a guy has 4 grandchildren, 2 daughters, 4 grandchildren, and all of them are just what they are inheriting is like bare minimum almost. Um, and they're trying. The plot of the book is them trying to find out these four grandchildren that are all boys are trying to find out why this girl in particular um, inherited it all, and they say that it has to be some kind of game. She has to be a piece of the puzzle in the game, and maybe at the end of the game we will inherit it all as long as we solve this. She's just a pawn or something like that. And they even say to her that you might have thought that you had fooled our grandfather into inheriting all of this, but we bet that this was his idea from in the first place anyway. And she's like, I didn't even know the guy. What are you talking about? So it's an amazing book. I really enjoyed it. I'm glad I picked it up. I gave it 5 star. I have the second book on my TBR for January. So I really, really, really loved it. I think I would even I can even see myself rereading it in the future, enjoying it all over again. But it's a mystery kind of book, so um, I'm not sure if I would enjoy rereading it. Maybe I can find some new, because mysteries and crime novels and that sort of thing is hard to reread because you know who did it, you know the end of it. So we'll see when I read book 2 if I feel like I really enjoyed it so much. So the next book I read, there were 2 books that were not on my TBR specifically. One of them was a book that I knew I had on reserve at the library, so I knew I had it to pick up probably sometime soon, and I did. And that is The Christmas Tree Farm by Laura Gilmore. And then the other one I didn't have on reserve, but don't think I had it on reserve. I just picked it up when I saw it at the library. I was like, oh, I need to read that one. So I think I have a picture of both of them together. Yeah. So The Christmas Tree Farm, I gave both of these 5 stars. I gave both of them 5 stars. The Christmas Tree Farm I read first, and it's this wonderful, cute uh, Hallmark movie Christmas story romance. It's a romance story with just the right amount of spice for me, with my taste. So this is the third book in the Dream Harbor series, and I enjoyed this the most so far. The first one being the Pumpkin Spice Cafe, the second one the Cinnamon Bun Bookstore, and this is the third one, the Christmas Tree Farm. So I enjoyed this one the most, and I was so sad to let it go. I was so sad to let it go, but I didn't have the opportunity to buy it at all this month, so I'm just gonna have to sit on ice, as we say, um, in Sweden, and buy it at another time. But I'm really looking forward. This is a book I could have on my shelf and reread every Christmas because it was so wonderful and just the right amount of spice for me. The other one, The Spell Shop by Sarah Beth Durst, I also gave a 5 star, and this is a cozy fantasy. It's called cozy cottage fantasy. I just say cozy fantasy. But I really enjoy these kinds of stories with this cozy element. So this is a book about a woman that works at a library in the big city. She comes from this small little island. It's a fantasy world, so it's not applicable to the real world. But she lives she lives in the library in the city, and she works in the library in the city. And one day there's a revolution because, as I understand it, in this city there are an emperor, and so it's called an empire. And this emperor has gathered all of the magic in the world into the city, which makes the outer world the outer parts of the world suffer, and so there's a revolution to like bring the magic back, to not harbor all the magic in the city anymore. So that's kind of what the revolution is about. And this revolution ends up affecting this woman because the library burns. They burn the library. She can't fathom why, because the library holds all of these books with the magic, with the spells of all the magic. So at the last minute, she gathers as much books as she can, like 5 crates of books. She takes them with her, and she takes her spider plant that is sentient, Cass. So her name is, I don't remember her name. Do I remember her name? Kira? No, that's not right. I don't remember her name. But anyway, so this woman and this spider plant, Cass, Kiela, 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 Kiela. Kiela and Cass goes to take a boat from the harbor. I think it's her boat, but she fills up this boat. No, it's not her boat, but she fills up this boat with all the crates and with some essentials, but not that much essentials that she actually needs. And she and Cass goes, they sail day and night until they get to this small island where she's from, where she goes to live in her parents' cottage. And she just tries to make a living for herself, setting up, and she wants to set up a spell shop behind. So the selling spells is prohibited under the laws of this empire. And she doesn't know if the empire has fallen or not. She can't be sure, but she uses a spell to make a lot of berries in her garden to make jam, so she can open a jam shop, because there are almost no fruits and vegetables or whatever on the island because of the lack of magic. So she sets up this spell shop behind the jam shop, and it's just a wonderful story. And there's some plots, and there's a twists and turns during the plot, and there's an inspector that comes to the island to see if anyone is using magic, and there's some twists and turns that you're not gonna be prepared for at all. And I really enjoyed it. I don't want to live on the island or in the cottage, but I would like to visit, and I would like more books in this series. There's so much potential with this book. It's not a series, I think. So after that book, I had 3 more books to read this month. So this was on the 25th of December. I finished this book, and I was sick by then, because I was sick over the holidays. Of course I was. I had a high fever on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, so I read this book during my fever. Well, when I didn't sleep, when I wasn't asleep or tried to rest, I read. So I don't know if maybe my experience of this book was quite fever enhanced. I don't know, but I enjoyed it. So the next book I read, or finished, I would say, is this one, and it's the Swedish book Jordad by David Jonstad. This is a book about, it's called The Simpler Life in the Shadow of the Collapse. So this is about how the world is coming to, or the society in the world, like is coming to a collapse or coming to an end, because we are running out of oil, we are running out of resources. And so this book goes through, how did we get here? And it talks about all of the history of like society as we know it. It is predominantly focused on Europe and Sweden, but it also talks about the world as a global institution and global entity. So in the first part of the book, the author talks about what he did to get closer to the earth, grounded, jordad, by purchasing or be purchasing a part of a collective out in the country, growing vegetables, and just going back to the earth, coming back to the earth. And then he goes into all the history of how we got here, and then at the end of the book there are some talks about there's a discussion about what does the future look like. Can we learn from the past and create a new future? So not bring the past back. That's not what he's talking about. But he's talking about learning from the past and learning how to live in the future, and what it will take to live in a future that is sustainable for everyone on Earth. And it's a really interesting book. I will reread this yearly, I think, to remind myself of all of this and to regain hope. Because it was depressing in the middle when I read the story about how we got here. And I was like, oh, what did we do? Like a collective, like a human collective. And then at the end of the book, I was like, okay, we can fix this, but we need to be on the same page. But every individual needs to get there on their own. It's a massive, massive collective undertaking. But it ended on a hopeful note, I would say. And I gave that a 5-star. If I want to keep it and reread it to the extent that I did, I really am going to, give it a 5-star. So the next book I read was the last book on my Sunweight calendar, and it was Helena Bergström's Eld, snö och stjärnor. And this is a Swedish book, which is, I found out, so the title is Fire, Snow and Stars. So this was the 3rd book in a series, or maybe the 2nd book out of 3. But I won't be reading the other books because I feel like the other books I wasn't really interested in when I read about them, but I really enjoyed this one and I gave it a 4.5 stars. So in this book we follow Nora, and she's struggling to get her bakery not up and running again, but she struggles to continue running her bakery after her parents died. So this bakery has been in the family for generations. And she's struggling to keep the ends to meet, to keep it up, keep it going. And her best friend Bea, BEA, volunteers her. So in her place, she emails the TV station of a popular TV show called Kavla Upp, or Roll Off Your Sleeves, like this for baking. And she emails that, and she enters her into like the competition of being in the Christmas special of this show. And lo and behold, she gets accepted into this TV show, and it's a lovely book that we follow her struggle throughout the recording of this show. It's a 4-episode Christmas special with this star baker that is really obnoxious in the beginning, and they really butt heads, and it's good TV and all of that. And it's a romance. It's a Christmas romance, but it's really a slow burn. It's the best slow burn ever. And they're both kind of the grumpy one in the beginning. So Henrik, the star baker, is kind of driven by wanting his show to continue when he finds out that it might not be continued the next year. And he struggles between meeting the needs of the producer and everyone who wants him to do certain things in order to evoke and provoke emotion in Nora. And Nora is determined not to be portrayed as this stupid baker that doesn't know anything, because she knows what she's doing. She just needs some help getting back on her feet because she's doing it all alone. So it's this really tug of war going on in the beginning, yeah, in a lot of the book. So in a big part of the book is like that, and I really really enjoyed it, and I can see myself rereading this one as well next year. I'm really enjoying the setting, the Christmas setting of it all. We're enjoying the slow build of the romance, and yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. But I will not, I think, be reading the other parts of the series. They are all standalone, and I didn't feel called to them at all. I didn't feel drawn to them at all, but I enjoyed this one. So I hope this is translated into English at some point, because you would enjoy it, I think. So the last book that I read was Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. This one. And on Fable, I said it took me 2 months to read this. It didn't. It took me 3. And this was a work of love. This was a work of art to read this. So this one is indigenous wisdom, scientific knowledge, and teachings of plants. And it's so wonderful, it's so amazing, and it's really, the author is Potawatomi. I think I'm butchering it, but that's what it sounds like in my head. Potawatomi, something like that. So it's native. She's Native American, of Native American heritage, and it really is wonderful. I can't really sum it up. So on the back here it says, an extraordinary book showing how the factual objective approach of science can be enriched by the ancient knowledge of the indigenous people. It is the way she captures beauty that I love the most. The images will stay with you long after you read the last page, by Jane Goodall. And she actually met Jane Goodall at one point. She goes through that at the end of the book. They had like this ceremony for a place, for a place, and Jane Goodall was a part of that ceremony, so they met during that ceremony. Wonderful. So it really is like the meeting of the spiritual, the practical, the technical, and the factual in like science. The meeting on all of those. And for me, most of all, this was a book that gave me a big understanding of the indigenous ways, because that's a part of the world that I'm not indigenous from at all. So, and it's always interesting to read about other traditions and other, indigenous ideas and wisdom, because it's so intertwined with the ones from where I live. Like, all indigenous people have the same love for the earth and gratitude, and the way of life is so uh, walking in beauty, which is the it's like the philosophy of my life, walking in beauty. And I felt so honored to be taking to be given this and all of these stories. So I read it one chapter at a time, annotating the crap out of this. You can see all of my tabs, and I just enjoyed it so much. And I will be rereading this one as well. Maybe not every year, because it took me 3 months, but maybe once, like every second year or every 18th month or something like that, and keep loving this book and its wisdom. And it also ended. I think these two were really similar in a way that they ended on hope. And she also talked about how we can save the earth, how we can save the people and everyone who lives on this earth together, and how we can do that by going back to learning from the past and bringing what we have learned into the future to shape the future together, and coming back to a place of gratitude. And that really resonated with me. And for me, I really needed these two, the messages of these two were so intertwined for me, so in sync. It was just amazing. But if you don't have access to this book, it's fine. This is an amazing book, and I would urge everyone to read this at some point, because it really is humbling. It's filled with wisdom, and sometimes a piece of humor here and there. But it's really serious. It is really serious. Sometimes there's a bit of humor. Mainly the humor is when she tells a story, and she talks about the people in the story and relate what they have said. Those people that work with gratitude on a daily basis, or indigenous wisdom on a daily basis, those people have a real humor, uh, and the humor, yeah, they have a real humoristic view of life and way of living, um, that is admirable. That they can be a part of something so serious, and at the same time keep their humor and wits about them, and really use play as a way of life and a way of learning and living, and rehabilitating the earth around them. An amazing book. So, phew, those are the books I read. I read 10 books. Beautiful Creatures, the second book. The Memory Theater, uh, Before the Snow Falls, Belladonna, Heritage Games, Christmas Tree Farm, The Spell Shop, Jordad, Eld, Snö och Stjärnor, which is Fire, Snow and Stars, and Braiding Sweetgrass. So 10 books I read in December, which is, I said at the minimum I would read 8 books. And I might have only read 8 books if I hadn't felt a bit better from my flu or whatever it was in the last couple of days. And those are the days I focused on finishing these two. So, yeah, amazing month, I would say. I don't have the statistics for how many of each genre I read, or anything like that set up here. At some point I will show you my reading journal. I haven't done the final page for December in that yet, because I have yet to incorporate these two into that, or at least this one, I think, before I tally it all up. So yeah, the next video I make will probably be my January TBR. Let's see how that goes. So I think the way I'm gonna do it from now on, for 2025, is that I will keep talking about the books after I've read them, especially because I don't remember enough from the books in the beginning of the month to talk about them at the end of the month if I don't have them on my shelves anymore. So I will probably keep doing that, wrap them up before I return them to the library or something like that. And then I will make a wrap up video talking about the rest of them, and giving you some stats. And for me, it's interesting to see how well did I keep up with the TBR, because as the books on my little TBR, in my little TBR box, I don't really have an overview of where I started and where I landed, where I ended the month. So this is really great. This is a new point of view for me, and I'm enjoying it. So I will be doing this. So I hope you didn't mind this gotten a way longer than I expected, and I will work on that. And at some point, I hope to learn how to edit out all of my and what am I doing, that sort of things. So thank you for watching. I will see you in my next video, and I have already started one book that is part of my January TBR. Because yeah, I have already started, but I won't finish it until the beginning of January. So that's how I count it. Like, the books I'm reading right now is for January because that's when I will end the books. So all of these books I ended in December, but the first one I might have started in late November. That's how I do it. So I don't have like a clear. I'm not gonna push myself to read the book that I'm reading now by tomorrow, which is New Year's Eve, so that I can have a clear TBR for January. I'm not gonna do that. That's gonna be a part of my TBR for January. Yeah, because I don't want to change these numbers either. So yeah, and I will probably make some videos about other stuff as well for next year. Like I'm looking forward to making videos about the series I'm in the middle of right now, and maybe some goals for next year. But we'll see. Have a lovely New Year's Eve and the New Year's Eve celebration, and I will see you next year. Bye.